What if the secret to success wasn't just talent or hard work, but unshakable confidence? Welcome to Grasp Confidence, the podcast where visionary thought leaders, speakers, and entrepreneurs unlock the mindset and strategies for lasting success. I'm your host, Tara LaFon Gooch, CEO, two-time best-selling author, and international TEDx speaker, and I can't wait to help you step into the most powerful version of yourself. Let's dive in. AI is moving faster than leadership is ready for. Today's guest, Michael Clark, helps leaders, governments, and investors understand what to do with AI without losing what makes us human. In this episode, you'll discover how identity, purpose, and wisdom must guide technology, not the other way around. If you want to lead confidently in the age of AI, this conversation is for you. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What an intro.
Oh, it's such an interesting topic, right? AI is changing and, it's as slow as it's ever going to be right now, which I like to think about because it seems so fast-paced, and it is, but right now is the slowest it will ever be. What got you into this work, and why does it make you excited?
So it's really funny because, like you say, it's the slowest it's ever been. In a way, AI has been here longer than, well, almost as long as I have, right? It's comes from, well, even longer actually, because it comes from the 40s, really. It's really old. Yeah. So it's gone through cycles like any technology where it's just got to a point now where everybody knows about it. Whereas before it was buried in websites, it wasn't visible to the general public. Where it is now is a complete, it's in your face 24/7. It's the topic of the day, probably. How I got into it is just a very eclectic career, which touched all parts of a business in terms of how it would change, how you lead it. And technology was, I guess, the common denominator through that. It was almost like my whole life was part of a transformation digitally because of all the roles I took and the companies that I was in. But a big part of that journey was also the human-centric side of technology. So it wasn't just a case of how do I implement a system in a business. It's actually how do we do this so it has impact, as in impact for the customer, impact for the employees. So there was always this human side to the work that I was doing. I was also self-taught, which is unusual. So I valued a different path of education, and I could see the flaws in the current system today, which actually, ironically, AI is exposing. So if you circle that back to your first question in terms of why I'm excited, I think I'm excited probably in a different way to most people. I think most people today, I would probably argue, it's probably 50-50, right? It's 50% of the world are excited, 50% are fearful of what this could mean for their jobs, what it can mean for education. I lean more to, is this actually a catalyst moment? Is this actually the first time, probably since the Industrial Revolution, where we actually have an opportunity to step back and say, well, is our education system fit for purpose to teach the next generation to reach their potential? Is our economy actually doing well? It's almost like AI is forcing us to have these questions if we do it in the right way. And actually, that's what excites me, because if we actually do this in the right way, we could unlock human potential in ways that we've probably never imagined.
Wow. It's incredible. I love thinking about it as the next industrial revolution. And it's, I think anytime there's change, especially change on this scale, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. I mean, generally speaking, human beings are adverse to change, right? And this is a huge change. So it's, there's a lot of talk about it, impacting jobs and livelihoods. But I think like anything, you can think of it as in the positive light or in the negative light, based on your choice. And if you start thinking of it positively, it's not what is this going to change in a bad way. It's how is this going to improve my life, my business, right? I mean, it's all on how you look at it, really.
Yeah, it is 100%. So there's also two sides to this coin. So the first side is you and me, in terms of how we as just the general public look at this technology, specifically those the ones that can access it, which is an important point. Those of us who are lucky to be able to afford the technology or have access to it, we'd be foolish not to be curious and learn how to use it and see how it plays a role in our life. That's the positive side of the coin. The flip side of the coin is then those that have the power to make change. How are they looking at this? So in a way, that the biggest danger is we apply outdated principles and outdated policies to govern something which is way ahead of anything we've had to govern before. So for the general public, for them to feel, I think personally, to feel comfortable, it's also down to leaders to show the path and show that the general public is in their front of mind with this technology and what it means for them. But also inclusion plays a big part, because we also can't leave large parts of the population excluded from AI, which is kind of the worst thing that could come of this. So I'm kind of on two sides of the coin. I think everybody that can access it should play with it, be curious, be careful with your data, but start to learn, because at the end of the day, it'll be the individual that uses AI as a collaborative partner that will be the most successful in years to come. And then for the leaders, as I said, we look to them now to set a path that everybody benefits. And this worry of jobs goes away because we give people the abilities to be able to work with AI in the future.
I love that. And think of it as a helper, right? Not a replacement. Again, it's all about the reframe. I look at it as it's a great helper. I'm able to save a lot of time. I'm able to save a lot of money. I'm able to be more efficient. I'm able to be more productive. All of these are great qualities. And, as a leader who's busy, I have a lot of things going on all the time, right? I have clients. I'm grateful enough to have employees. I'm grateful enough to have a family. I mean, I don't want to sacrifice any more of my time on what truly matters in my life when I could have AI help me with a simple task or whatever it is. Um, it's kind of the analogy of if you have a bulldozer, let's say, people could say that's taking away jobs because people could be, manually doing that work. Well, if that's the case, then give them all spoons. Right? It doesn't make sense. It's a human life, and we're put on this earth for a purpose. So if you can use something like this, like technology, so that we can elevate our purpose in life and do less manual, mediocre things, what can't we do, right? Again, it's all how you think of it, right?
100%. And I look at, and I wrote about this a very long time ago. I stopped using the word AI a very long time ago, and I started calling it collaborative intelligence.
Ooh, I love that.
That's actually what this is, right? Because if you think of AI, your first reaction is the Terminator or some cold machine. If you think of it as a collaborative partner that's basically going to get the best out of you and the best out of the machine for you to create something meaningful in your life.
Yeah.
So if you think of it collaboratively, this then requires two things from us. If we accept that the machine now is the owner of knowledge and speed and pattern matching, which 20 years ago was the human, now we can never keep pace with how fast a machine can come up with an answer. Where we come into the picture is we're the people that can provide judgment. We're the people that can provide ethics. We're the people that can push back and say, well, actually, what you've just given me is not right. I think it's this. And in the end, you end up improving the machine. So you're absolutely right. You should look at this as a partner. It's not there to replace what you do. It's going to replace a piece of you, but it's also going to strengthen the other part of you, which actually is why you're here, which is the creativity, the curiosity, the resourcefulness that makes us who we are. That's really why looking at it as a collaborative tool rather than just something that's going to take our job. You raise a really interesting point, though, when you mentioned I'm going to get time back. I think what AI will also force us to do is better understand the concept of time, because you hear all these stories about AI is going to give us all this time, but most of us unfortunately work all our life to do a job and come home and then one day retire. The question is, if you're going to get all this time back, how are you actually going to use time effectively? Because I don't think that's a topic that's discussed very often either, because we assume we're going to get 5 hours back, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use 5 hours on social media or on videos. It could mean I'm going to do something productive or something purposeful. So that's another positive AI. It's actually going to get us to reframe the concept of time as well.
I love that. That is so poignant. Okay. So I think that's a challenge for anybody listening right now, right? If an entrepreneur is listening, we'll just say an entrepreneur, an author, right?
Mhm.
Somebody who says, I don't have enough time to work on X. I don't have enough time to work on my book. I don't have enough time to work on starting a business, starting a podcast, whatever it is. If you are starting to use AI and implement it, do a little tracking. How much is this, time is that actually saving you? It's probably saving you at least 10, 15, maybe even more a week, hours per week. In that time that you have now that's freed up, I challenge every single one of you to do something that is something that you should be doing, something that's a part of what you feel like is your purpose on this earth, whatever it is. And take that time and then begin to chip away at that thing. And wow, the world would be a better place, right? It's all about how you use your time wisely. And again, having that discernment. I love that. That is so powerful. And you can start your dream. You have time now.
There's plenty of honestly, but then this is why inclusion is so important, because the like I used to work in financial services a very long time ago,
Mhm.
and we know that financial inclusion has never been solved. There's large parts of the population that haven't got a bank account, can't make payments. The chasm of being able to access your own data and use it is probably even bigger. We know during COVID that American students some states couldn't access the internet because they just didn't have access to the ability to do so. So we've got to do a better job of the narrative that you and I have just described is available to everyone, because otherwise it becomes a race between those who have AI and those that don't, which comes back to my two-sided coin. It's then down to the leaders who shape the policy. I would rather use the word frameworks, to actually make sure that as we make these choices with AI today, we do it consciously to make sure that everybody benefits. But at the same time, there's I don't want to use the word tax, but a incentive for the firms that actually are responsible for the technology, not to just create jobs, but also to actually make it available to everyone. So large parts of the world can actually access it and actually see the benefit.
Wow, I love that. And also, you're talking about leaders. That could be leaders within organizations, right? So, if you're a leader in an organization and maybe your company is implementing some type of AI driven initiative, right? Maybe you're changing some things. It's not about even reducing jobs necessarily. You can still have that AI implemented in your company and keep people in their jobs. Just, have people in again according to their purpose, what they're really good at, their skill sets, right? And if you do that and actually you'll build up your employees and they'll be doing things that are in line with their skill sets, their interests. That's furthering the company's purpose as well, right?
You've touched on something that I had to write about.
Ah,
So
I love that.
pretty cool. So you, if you're a leader now, we'll go into the leader of an organization, which I think is prudent with this. So we saw in the early days of AI, a lot of the workforce got laid off because people looked at AI as an efficiency save.
Yeah.
But what they didn't realize was a lot of the historical experience left the building, which ironically is what needs to be in place to improve AI. So the big shift leaders need to make in businesses now is what I would call more abilities-based learning.
Yeah.
So what that means is, instead of teaching people basic competencies like we used to do,
Hmm.
you now need to teach people the appropriate abilities to be able to complement AI. So these are things like the ability to think critically, the ability to reason, the ability to spot a fake or what's not real, the ability to take the experience that you have and the judgment of 20 years worth of experience and utilize that with a machine that can give you the knowledge and the insight quickly. So this is about leaders now, not just implementing the technology, but also thinking about what the workforce of the future needs to be and how does that organization need to evolve. Because I truly believe on the organizations that I've worked with, particularly in my last role, they just thought implementing the technology was the answer. But really, something like AI is transformative. It's changing the organization, which means the leader, the first thing you need to do is communicate to everybody what this means so you reduce the fear factor. But the next question is, how do I upskill the workforce? Because it's the workforce combined with AI that's going to make my organization supercharged.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It's so true because so many organizations that I've worked with as well, they've implemented AI technology, they've, laid off a bunch of employees, and then there's no skill, that deep skill, to actually implement the technology effectively, to where the employees that are there now have confidence, one, in the technology that's being implemented, and two, in the leadership. It's so key because as we go through these transitions, and again, like I agree with what you said, Michael, we're on the cusp, but we're in another industrial revolution. During the industrial revolution, they hired, right? They hired. It was a boom. We can do the same. So lots of wisdom right there. What do you think is going to happen in the next, let's just project out and do some future casting. Where do you see it? I do want to know where you see technology going in the future. And I'll share an interesting thing that I saw about
Mm.
Elon Musk and Tesla. Someone had visited his factory and they said in a few years, you'll forget Tesla even made cars, which I thought was interesting, right? So, but he kind of left it as a hanger. What does that mean? So I would like to know from your perspective and opinion, what does that mean? What does it mean?
So I
What
can go
will it
full
look like?
if you want. I can go
Yeah.
full feature if you like. Still
Yes.
get off.
Let's go.
Um, so we're also on the next iteration of telco. So we've all been on 5G for what, 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years. Every 10 years, you get a new network capability. So 3, 4 years ago in my old job, I actually wrote about 6G and what 6G will mean for us. So in a way, that will start to mean near field satellites, near field positioning systems. So it means that in a Tesla factory, you wouldn't even need a human anywhere. So basically, it would be cars on demand, and drones controlled would actually implement and build the car. So you wouldn't even need a human to build the car.
Oh my
You
gosh.
can see this coming because I talked about AI agents 3, 4 years ago in my old job because we had to help leadership I
Mm.
was advising C-suite and so on. So AI agents are the start of the AI becoming a worker in the workforce running autonomously. So um, then the next step after that is AI agents that can actually work with each other.
Wow.
So once they can actually communicate with each other, which by the way happened 10 years ago in Facebook, as it was called, developers wrote code and the AI created its own language because it was more efficient. So they shut it down. So as the network, because the key to this is how good our infrastructure is to be able to pull all this off. So if 6G comes real, we get the ability to have signals giving us, absolute positioning of where these systems are and how they operate. It gives people like Tesla and others massive opportunity to move vast amount of data around very quickly, very small micro pieces. And the AI as we know it today will be twice as fast, twice as powerful, more interactive, and how all of that works. So more businesses will become autonomous. We probably will see, I think this has been mentioned a few times, there will be the $1 billion company of one person. Like
Wow.
that's given. In maybe 10 years, that will be a thing. Someone will create something. And another prediction I have is, so this is probably the next 3 years. So AI agents today, and I wrote about this in MasterCard on my old company a long time ago. I wrote a big paper on this. So AI agents today are just a commonplace, not even in the general public speak, but they're becoming quite common. Very simply, these are specific versions of AI that can perform specific tasks. So you may have an AI that just does your legal work. So it actually looks through legal documents and it does things that a human would do. or you may have something that does compliance. Now, um, in a couple of years' time, I may be able to download those from an app store, right? So I'm going to download, you said, like if I can get AI to do my work for me, well, why didn't I download an agent from an app store like I do iTunes today for an AI that does a specific job for me right now? I need to download an AI to clean my desktop up. I need to download an AI to actually manage all my documents and manage my appointments for me. Which, by the way, the beta for that is already out. I saw it this morning on a video, which was crazy,
Ooh,
where an AI
exciting.
desktop for them, which would save my life, by the way.
I know, right? I'm like, "Ooh, send that to me when it comes out, Michael."
You're going to see over the next 3 to 4 years the role of AI in our life becoming much bigger, as a true companion, and we will all eventually have our own personal AI on our device. It's just coming. It'll be an AI that actually works for you specifically and understands you, and also is able to help you with your healthcare. So
Wow.
this is like a 10, 15-year roadmap. But the real point here is, how do we want that direction of travel to go? Do we want it to be technology led, or do we want this really about technology with a human touch? Is that what we really want to be aiming for? Because I think that's where this crossroads is right now. There's this tension around the world between data being taken from books, public confusion and concern, regulators stepping in, people being sued. This is turning into a perfect storm, and it's either going to go, we set the right direction of travel, or we let technology take the wheel, and we're in whatever that turns out to be in the next 5, 6 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh my gosh. So this is something that, again, a lot of people are thinking about, and it's just one of those things that it is hard to predict to a certain extent. But what's interesting is that it seems like almost unlimited applications. And so many problems that we have in life can be solved by AI. And again, it's the integration of the human with it, not letting technology lead itself, right? But letting humans lead technology. It's so incredible, Michael. This is so inspiring too. I need to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Dr. Harvey Castro.
Mm.
He is a leading. Are you familiar with Harvey?
I know this name. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. I'll introduce you guys on LinkedIn. He is an AI expert for healthcare. So he's
Oh, I do know him. I do know him. I'm part of a WhatsApp group with him. I know Harvey. Yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah, he's amazing. He's, got 5 TEDx talks about AI and healthcare and all these books, and it's fascinating, right? Because until I met him, I hadn't thought about, of course, AI and healthcare in that way, and he really opened my eyes to so much potential that just AI can spot that humans could miss. And if we can save a life that much quicker by the implementation of AI in healthcare, I mean, how much better could we live as a society, right? And we can reduce healthcare costs potentially. We can reduce so much. What do you think about that particular field with AI?
And again, I wrote about this years ago as well, like Harvey. Um, I, I've always believed, look, all seriousness, when we had Siri for the first time, you could have had preventative medicine back then. That's just the
Mhm.
fact of life. I think where this starts to hit a wall is the current approach to medicine and pharmacy today. Because whether we like it or not, it doesn't make pharmacy any money if we cure everybody. Um, that's the problem. It's not a technology problem, it's a policy problem, it's an economic problem. This is why AI is really significant, because it's actually going to butt heads with old economic models. Because if you think about um, medication and pharmaceuticals generally, it's
Mhm.
not in their interest for you to be cured,
That's right.
because it's a multi-billion trillion dollar industry. If you can suddenly turn around and say, well, actually, if I gave everybody their own data and their own AI that was personal to them, they could have preventative medicine and they wouldn't need to come and get your drugs, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if you flip it, you could actually do something pretty cool. So let's just say, I always use this example. So if you and I had diabetes and I was solving it through traditional means and you were solving it through nutrition,
Mhm.
and we suddenly decided to swap our data, and our AI was able to spot the pattern that actually solves diabetes, sold that to the pharmaceutical company, who's to say they couldn't now, instead of selling you pills, they sold algorithms, and they sold the algorithm that went on your phone that actually prevented you from having diabetes. How much more money would they make from that than they make from medication? So it's really about rethinking the paradigm. Right now, a lot of these technologies have been capable of doing these things for decades. It's just that the quality of AI and the strength of the algorithms are that much stronger, but they're still butting heads with what I would call, I always make the joke, it's like 24th century technology versus 21st century governance. So we're butting heads with, it's a bit like when Google tried to do the driverless car. Apparently, it took them 3 years to get a driving license for a car with no driver, because all of the policies that were written for driving had to have a driver and a car. But they said, no, no, I've got no driver, but you can't have a license. So it's a bit like that. It's like I can do preventative medicine, but no, no, this is how medicine works. So for these technologies to actually reach their potential and for us to do exactly what you described and actually what should happen, this is why, in a way, we haven't mentioned the book, but the book was written is so we can use this as a moment to step back and say, okay, if we want people to live longer, if we want people to be better, if we want people to reach their potential in their mind, their body, and their health, and their daily things, some of the older red tape probably has to evolve. And that's the key word. It's not about chucking the baby out with the bathwater and saying all of this is rubbish and is 20, 30 years old, it doesn't work. No, no. It's looking at it and going, first principles, don't need this, need this, need this, need this. All of a sudden, the world is in a different place, and we're better off, but there's more guide rails. So they're more flexible and more adaptable.
Wow, incredible. So interesting, so intriguing. I'm excited to read your book and definitely let the audience know where they can find it because I think this is a conversation that's only going to continue, right? And before we step into the next even wave of this, let's get an understanding of where we are now, right? Because technology is really it's evolving
Yeah.
so quickly. Let's get a hold of it now because it's only going to continue to progress. And if this is something new for you, the best time to start is today. Right?
It's like, yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Where can people find your book, Michael?
So it's also worth saying what the book is. So it's not like a technology book. That's the first thing. So many years ago, I had to solve a lot of problems to write this book. So I had to figure out what the new school's curriculum would have to be, what the new future of work model would be, for people to be able to use their own AI and their own data. So in the end, I wrote the book like The Alchemist. It's actually written as a fable, but the facts are embedded. So the book was called Our Moment because it felt appropriate. This is like, I think this is probably the first moment since the industrial age where we actually now have a choice where to direct technology and how we want it to work for us. So the whole point of the book was, how can I create a story that's memorable, that people can feel, and paint a story that people would want to live in? So I basically, like Santiago in The Alchemist, there is a boy, and he goes on his own journey to understand the history that we may not have known, where technology comes from, some of the mistakes, some of the gaps. But really, it ends up turning into a story of identity and purpose. And then ultimately, he gets given all the answers to how we use this technology in a right way. My claim to fame so far, and I hope I'm allowed to say this, is that Alison Berry read it, who's very famous in America for the Takedown Act. And she said it should be in every school in the US, which was really cool because it was written at a 14-year-old reading level. So it means that it's now understood. Yeah, so the book itself, you can get it on Amazon. I'm told you can buy it in Barnes and Noble online, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's easier to get in the US apparently than where I live in Dubai, which is ironic. So yes, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and various other places as well.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. I forgot that you were in Dubai. I meant to mention that earlier. How did you just real quick, how did you get there? Like, what's that all about? What was that journey like?
Well, it was via Emirates. That was the easy bit. So the airline bit made it easy. Look, I think 3 years ago, I was in a very fortunate position where I could take a look at the world and where I thought it was going. So I looked at it with a rational head and said, okay, well, the UK at the time looked like it was heading for a recession. It had come out of Europe. My biggest concern was not immigration; it was migration of talent. If I'm being honest.
Wow,
And then yeah, so then I looked at the US, and there's an irony in this statement. I thought the US would go through a dip, just because of where it was 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, but ironically, I do more work in the US now than ever, which has really surprised me. Silicon Valley is more alive than ever, which is amazing. Um, but no, like 3 years ago, then I looked at Dubai as almost like the next Silicon Valley. I looked at it also as a place where economically it wouldn't be affected by a recession so much, maybe single digits. But also, I looked at what was around me. I looked at the emerging markets. I looked at Africa, which was on my doorstep. I looked at Asia, which wasn't too far away, and Europe is only 6.5 hours by plane. The only killer is the US, which is about 14 hours on a good day. But that's why, and it's proven to be true. Dubai moves at a massively fast pace. It creates an environment for innovation. But like I say, I'm pleasantly surprised in a good way in terms of the US direction around innovation, which seems to be reborn, particularly in the Valley. So no, I think that's the reason I moved here. But like I say, it's turned out to be the right reason, particularly from where I used to live. But no, it feels like I'm in the heartbeat, but I'm also in a hub, which means I'm connected to all the emerging markets and where the action is really.
Oh, it's on my list. I wanna go, I wanna go. So, I
More than
know
welcome.
somebody who can show me around, right?
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, Michael, such a pleasure, to interview you today and to learn about this book, this movement that you're starting as well. Really, this integration of humans plus AI, not AI by itself, not humans by themselves. We can integrate this. And if we start learning, like I said, today, even a little bit more, how much farther ahead we will be. So, thank you so much for being a guest on this show. And thank you for everyone who tuned in to this episode of Grasp Confidence as well. Don't forget to share this episode with someone in your network today that can help them in their life or their business with this integration of AI and to help inspire them to learn more and starting today. Guys, we will see you on the next episode. Take care.